Standard form might look tricky, but it's really simple after you learn the steps. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to convert numbers into standard form and how to change them back again, so you can smash these questions in your GCSE exam. So let's get started. So when you're writing a number in standard form, you're going to write it as a multiplied by 10 to the power of n, where a is a number that is equal to or bigger than 1, but is less than 10. So a can be 1, but it cannot be 10. So let's convert 4,500 into standard form. So first of all, we write 4,500 as a, so it needs to be less than 10. So it basically needs to be one number before the decimal place. So it's going to be 4.5. If these zeros were like 9 and 8, then we would include them, but because it's 0, we don't need to write 4.500, we can just write 4.5. Now we need to write it as multiplied by 10 to the power of something. So we have moved it along 1, 2, 3 times, so it's going to be to the power of 3. And we can check that we've got this right by multiplying 4.5 by the 10 to the 3. And that is the same as multiplying it by 10 3 times. So if we do that, we'd get 4,500. So that is a good way of how to check your answer. That is how you convert it back to a normal number. So the answer would be 4.5 multiplied by 10 to the 3. I've got a question for you to try. Pause, have a go yourself, come back to watch the solution. Okay, so first of all, let's think about it in terms of a. Well, we know it's going to be 3.2, as we can forget about the zeros, and the number less than 10 would be 3.2. So we'd put a decimal place right after the 3. And now we need to write it as a power of 10. So we can think about it like this. How many times has the 2 moved? So 1, 2, 3, 4, because the 2 is right after the decimal place. So it's going to be 3.2 multiplied by 10 to the 4. And that would be your final answer. Again, you can check it by multiplying it out. Okay, I've got another example to go through. So this time we are putting a number that is less than 1 into standard form. So to do this, we want to work out what we are going to have as a. So again, we would ignore the zeros, so it's going to be 7.2, because we are moving the 7 across. So it's the first number that you move across that is less than 10. So let's work out how many times we have moved 7, and then we'll know what power of 10 it's going to be. So 1, 2, 3. But it's not going to be positive 3, it's going to be minus 3. As when you multiply this out, you want to do it backwards. So it's the opposite. As it's a smaller number, you know it's going to be negative, not positive. As it's a number less than 1, you know it's going to be negative, not positive. Because when you do 7.2 and multiply by 10 to the negative 3, you'll be moving it 3 places to the right rather than the left. So when you multiply that out, you would get the decimal number, because if it was positive 3, you would get 7,200, which is not what we want. We want the decimal form. So that is why you use the negative 3. Okay, I've got one for you to try. Pause the video, have a go, come back to watch the solution. Okay, so let's work out our a term. Well, it's going to be 5.4, as we are going to move the 5 to the left, and that is the number that is less than 10. So it's going to be 5.4. So we now need to work out what the power of 10 is going to be. Well, you know it's going to be a negative, as it is a decimal number. So when it is a decimal number, it is always a negative. So let's work out how many times we need to move the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be 5.4 multiplied by the 10 to the negative 4. Okay, I've got some mixed questions for you to try. So pause the video, have a go yourself, come back to watch the solutions. Okay, so let's start off with the first question. Let's work out what a is going to be. Well, it's going to be 5.6, as the decimal place is always after the first number. And now let's work out what 10 is going to be to the power of. So let's work out how many times the 5 has moved. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's going to be to the power of 5, as the 5 has moved from here to here. Okay, next question. So again, A is going to be 4.9 as the decimal place goes after the first number. And how many times has the 4 moved? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's going to be 10 to the power of 7. Okay, next question. So it's going to be 8.1. As we ignore the zeros, then it's the first non-zero number. So it's going to be 8.1. And how many times have we moved the 8? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be 10 to the minus 4 as it's a decimal, so it's always a minus. Okay, last question on the worksheet. This time it's going to be 3.4 as 3 is the first non-zero number. So we know it's going to be a negative. As I said before, decimals are always negatives. So how many times have we moved the 3? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's going to be to the minus 7. So 3.4 multiplied by 10 to the minus 7. Okay, so I'm now going to go over converting standard form to normal numbers. So we have 4.5 multiplied by 10 to the 3. So 10 to the 3 is the same as saying multiplying by 10 3 times. So if we multiply 4.5 by 10 once, we'd get 45. If we multiply it again, we'd get 450. And if we multiply it one more time by 10, we'd get 4,500. So that would be the final answer. However, there is another way to do it. You can just move the 5 once and then think about it like this. You need to move it 2 more times, so add 2 more zeros at the end. It's the same way, you just have thought about it in a different way. Or there's one more way you could do it. You could write it as 4.500, and then you can move the zeros 3 times. And you can write it like that, as decimal numbers have infinite zeros. So if we move the 0 3 times, 1, 2, 3, the 0 is going to go where the 4 is, and then you'd write another 0, 5 and 4 to get 4,500. So there's 3 ways you can do that. It's just whatever one is easiest for you. Okay, I've got a question for you to try. Pause the video, have a go, come back to watch the solution. So if we're writing 7.2 multiplied to the 10 to the 4 as a normal number, we can multiply it by 10 4 times. So if we multiply it once, we get 72. If we do it a second time, we get 720. We'll do it a third time and a fourth time. So our final answer would be 72,000. And it's always good to double check your answers. So we could write it back into standard form, and we would get 7.2 multiplied by 10 to the 4, as we have moved the 7 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Or you could have done it the other way as I showed you, but as long as you got this answer, then it's fine. Okay, I've got another example. So this time we are converting when it has a negative power. So we are basically turning this number into a smaller decimal number. So we are basically wanting to move the numbers 3 places to the right. So if we write down 3.4 with a few zeros, as decimals have infinite zeros, so let's move the 3 places to the right. So 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be here, and then the 4 is going to be after it. And now we need to put the zeros in front. So 0, 0 and 0. As remember, there can also be infinite zeros in front, as 0, 0, 0, 3 is the same as 3. Okay, I've got another one for you to try. Pause the video, have a go, come back to watch the solution. So let's write it as 5.6 with a few zeros. So we're going to want to move the 5 4 times to the right, as it is a negative. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So the 5 is going to go there, the 6 will go after it, and then let's fill in the zeros. So that is the final answer. Okay, I've got some questions for you to try, and this is the last lot of questions. So pause the video, have a go, come back to watch the solutions. Okay, first question. So we can multiply 2.1 by 10 5 times. So that's once, and then 2, 3, 4, 5. So the answer would be 210,000. Okay, next one. So this time is to the power of 6, so we can multiply it by 10 6 times. So once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and 6 times. So this time we have 9,800,000. Okay, we've now got some negatives. And another way to think about the negatives, you could, like we've been doing with the positives, we can divide by 10. So for the 7.5, we can divide by 10 twice as it's to the -2. So if we divide by 10 once, we'd get 0.75. And if we divide by 10 twice, we have 0.075. But I wouldn't recommend doing that when the power is smaller than -2, as it can get more complicated, as there'll be a lot more zeros involved and it'll just get confusing. Okay, last question. So we could either divide by 10 5 times, or we could write it as 6.1000 and move the 6 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the 6 is going to go here, the 1 is going to go after it, and then we have 0, 0, 0, 0, and 0. And there's actually a good way to check when you're multiplying by a negative power. So the numbers after the decimal place are going to be 1 less than the power. So we have 4 zeros after the decimal place, and the question is 10 to the -5, and 4 is 1 less than 5, so that's a good way on how to check it. So I'd say for the questions where you have positives, it's best to multiply it by 10 to the amount of times. So for instance, the first question would be 5 times. But for the negative questions, I think it's easier to do what we just did. That's it for the basics of standard form. Next time we'll tackle calculations with standard form. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Click on this video that YouTube recommends for you to ace those exams.